Oops. Welcome to Podcast Answers, the show where I help you start and grow your podcast, all while answering any podcasting questions along the way. Today, we have a guest today. I'm talking with Paul Gowder. Paul, welcome to the show. I don't have guests a whole lot, and I'm also running on Ecamm beta. So as you may have saw at the beginning, I had all of my overlays started. I'm running on the very latest beta, so apparently there's an issue with that. I'll have to chat with the team.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The beta for Ecamm's doing some really cool stuff, so I get it. I've been playing with it too. I'm excited.
It is, but apparently I can't have all my overlays because they all show at the same time, apparently, when I start the show. So, but yeah, definitely love that. I actually heard about you on the Ecamm show, The Flow, and
Yep.
I jumped on the opportunity. I emailed Katie right away and said, hey, Katie, I would love to chat with Paul because I'm interested in email lists. And so that's what we're talking about today is email lists, because I'm going to be honest, I don't have one yet for the show. And I was super convicted listening to you guys talk about an email list. So, so yeah.
All right, that's good.
Let's chat.
Yeah, let's get into it. I appreciate Katie, introducing us. Yeah, known Katie for a couple of years now. She's doing some great stuff over there at Ecamm. So it's been fun to work with them a few times.
Yeah, well, and then what was even better is she said, hey, Paul's a Disney fan just like you are. And so I see that you have your Disney hat on today. And I was explaining pre-show that I just got back from Disney, did a kind of quick trip to Disney. So we have that in common. You have, looks like your shirt is Disney also, isn't it?
Yeah, Disney Villains.
Nice.
Yeah, we just got back. We're crazy travelers. We just got back from a Disney cruise that we had planned for several months. My wife's a travel agent. She got a special opportunity and a special deal, so we ended up turning it into a 15-day trip with 2 cruises. So yeah, it was a great trip. We just got back a few days ago.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. So email list, talk to me. Why should
let's talk.
As a podcaster, why should I have an email list? Because when I think email lists, I think of people trying to sell me things, right? I get on a list because I want a good deal or I want something, but then my email box is just bombarded. And I know that as a podcaster, I don't want to do that to people. So tell me why should I have a list?
So a few reasons that I tell people to have a list. I don't like using list as that funnel thing to try to sell things. I mean, yes, we should probably all have something in there for sales, but for me, it's more about one, growing my audience and having my audience on a platform that I own and control. So not on these other rented properties. Mm-hmm. But 2, it's my best way of engaging with my community and building a sense of community. So when I write my emails, and you do the same, with your podcast, and all of us podcasters do, we're talking to our audience, we're engaging with them, we're trying to make people feel like they belong and that we're in this together. I feel the best place I can do that is with my email list, and that's how I write my emails. So I'm not, saying, hey, granted, we have some things, but my main purpose is it's more about, hey, here's what we do over here at powwows.com. Here's what we're about. I'm going to help you get some information.
Sure.
In fact, and we'll start right into some of the things. For a podcaster, this is one of the things I think you should do. Don't worry about what you're going to send out each week in that, traditional newsletter that so many people think of when they think of writing emails. Let's think instead of, can we build an email series or sequence, whatever in Kit, we call them sequences. Let's see if we can write a 3 or 5 email series that tells a story about you, your podcast, and some value you can give the audience. Okay. So one of the ones that I do here at powwows.com that works so well for me is what to expect at your first powwow. If you're new, or if you haven't been in a few years, if you're nervous about the whole, going into a cultural event like that, then this free email series walks you through the whole steps of it.
Okay.
If you're a Disney travel agent, I've helped some Disney travel agents build a sequence like, you want to take your first cruise. Well, let me walk you through the entire process of what it means to go on a cruise. Booking it, the documents you need, your packing list, what it's like on the first day, where to eat, all the, whatever our topic is, we can think of some value that we can give our audience by telling them a story over a
Hmm.
few emails. That's where you should focus as when you first building your list. Let's figure out what we can do with that, and
Okay.
we'll worry about what to send every week later. But
Gotcha.
if you can build some kind of series like this that adds value, then or answers a question, when they get through with that, they're engaged, they're in, right?
Sure.
They're in with you. That's where I think people need to start.
And you would say like how many emails are great for your first your sequence when someone joins your list?
I mean, I would start with trying to do a 3 to 5 email sequence if we, and then these aren't set in stone. It's not
Hmm.
like a podcast where we record it, we put it out there, and it does. It's you can replace the audio file, but
Sure.
it's difficult. It's
Right.
more set in stone. With these emails, add things to them over time,
Hmm.
change them, add another email as you develop your story, your business. You can always add a couple more emails as this grows. So let's start with 3, maybe
Okay.
work up to 4 or 5, and then go from there. And when I'm saying your first email sequence, a lot of people say you should create this welcome sequence. We're going to do that step 2.
Okay.
This is more of why is somebody coming to you? What is it that you're solving for the customer? Let's do that first, and then we'll get into who you are and kind of your welcome series.
Sure. So for me, if I was going to create one for podcast answers, which I had tried to
Right.
help people start and grow their podcast, and as a business, I also offer services. So, but that's not something I'm going to try and
Right.
sell because again, I don't want to use my list to necessarily sell because I think that turns people off in a hard sell. But
Yes.
so for something like me, it would be like, let's talk about starting your first podcast, or 3 things, 4 things, 5 things that new podcasters, questions that they have, and maybe once a week walk through that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. Maybe your first email sequence is something like, here are the 5 things I think you should do to prevent yourself from pod fading after 10
Okay,
episodes. So,
gotcha.
okay, right. And then from that, you can go into maybe some of your past episodes and pull from them and be like, first thing you need to do is use something like Ecamm that's going to make it easy and frictionless, and so that when you sit down, it's all done and you're not having to do edits, and it doesn't feel like a 8 hour process to record your podcast.
Sure.
And removing friction will keep you doing it right. So, that could be one email,
Mhm.
right? And you answer those kind of questions. By the time you get to the end and you turn, maybe at the end of it, you do put them in a different sequence. It's more about, hey, by the way, here's who I am, here's what I offer. And if you want to go deeper with me, here's some episodes I think you should listen to. And by the way, I also offer this service.
Awesome. So I heard you mention something there. You said into a different sequence. So
Yes.
so you would not have one sequence that just goes through 35 emails. You would have
No,
your
no, I
one
break
welcome,
them up.
welcome, and then break them up. And what's the reason for doing that? Because essentially, I mean, obviously, you're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to walk people through down a journey, down a path. But what's the reason in breaking that up into two
Okay.
two different sequences, or 3 different sequences, or however many different sequences?
Right. I heard Pat Flynn say this the other day is your email sequences should never have an endpoint. You should always be pointing them somewhere else.
Okay.
So I take my welcome sequence and say it's here, but I have multiple entry points into this. So here's my what to expect at your first powwow. I have one over here, find powwows near you. I have one over here on learn how to trace your Native American heritage. All of those, when you complete them, go back to that central welcome.
I
But I'm
gotcha.
able to now create 10, 20, whatever different entry points, and I can have different email series that are kind of your first introduction to us that touches and answers different questions.
I gotcha. So if I'm hearing you correctly, yeah, you're saying you have a landing page for a couple different things, and kind of based on the conversation that you're having with them, you point them to something, what's going to answer their immediate question for whatever
Right.
that may be, whether it's find a powwow, or what to expect or whatever, and then you have a generic type of a sequence that you just kind of keep moving everybody through. Then after that,
Exactly, exactly. And so, like, to give you another example, we'll talk about my personal brand thing. So I have one that I talk about where I show you the tools I use to help me build my list and grow my list. So that's paulgowder.com/email tools. When you go through that, Then you're going to be put into another sequence about just generally who I am, what I do, the services I offer, that kind of thing. But say that when I go and speak at like Podfest this year, I built a sequence just for Podfest. So it flowed through the 4 or 5 emails that kind of answered talked more about what I was talking about at Podfest. And then it took you into here's the general about us. So you can kind of have that one central place that everybody gets to eventually, but have multiple entry points.
Awesome. I do love that. And I did sign up for a Kit account. It's just on the free one right now.
All right.
But I have a feeling that I'm going to be investing in that because I know that the free one does not offer all of those things
Right.
to it. But I have looked at it and I do appreciate that. So what are some things then, reasons that you would use, like I think that they call them email blasts, where you're doing like a one-off type of to your whole list, or like when would you use that as opposed to a sequence, sending people through a sequence?
Yep. So I think of my email sequences as my introductions, as my nurturing, as building community. I think of my broadcast messages, the one that goes out to everybody, is those are for my fans.
Okay.
So new people are going through email sequences. Fans and followers get the weekly emails. And so I don't even say you're in the what to expect at your first powwow, you won't get my weekly email
Okay.
until you complete that sequence.
Okay.
Because again, for me in my weekly sequence, it's going to be more about, hey, here's what's going on with us. Here's some upcoming powwows. If we have a giveaway, if we're doing a live stream, all that's going to be it. For somebody who's not affiliated with us and kind of doesn't understand what we
Yeah.
do, that can be super overwhelming. And if that's their first touch point, they're probably going to bounce and they're gone. Like the email I wrote today, I do one on the 1st and the 15th ish. I was on a trip, so I'm a little behind. But it goes through all of the powwows we have on our event calendar for the next 3 months.
Okay.
That email is huge. And so if that was somebody's first touch point for powwows.com, they're going to go, whoa, this
Hmm.
is way too much information, and they may never open it again. But I've built that know, like, trust through these email sequences, and now when they get my weekly, they're going to hopefully read it. And I have a really good retention rate of people who come through that. I just pruned, so I'm at about 90 something thousand subscribers, and I'm still getting an over 40% open rate.
That's awesome.
So I'm really happy with that. So yeah, so the weekly broadcast is more about just talking with your followers and giving them updates. I like using them for. I always at the beginning write a little personal note, like, and I talk about, hey, we just went on a 15-day trip. It was supposed to only be a 7-day trip, but we extended it because this and this.
Hmm.
And so I'm personal with them and talk about that kind of stuff. And then we get into the meat of here's our new articles, here's our new podcast, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that idea too, because I think, yeah, you're going to overwhelm them, especially if they're going through a sequence, once a week, and you add in a second email to that. I think that's
Ooh,
going to feel like it's overwhelming. So I do like that.
yes.
And one of the things that I did notice about the Kit dashboard is when you're sending out something, it's super flexible as far as you're saying what I want, because you can tag people, you can put them in.
Right.
Tell me all about how you can organize people and why you would organize people in different groups in there. And because you can send it out to a specific even location, right? You can say only
Yes.
people that are in the US or only people that are in Florida. I mean, that's based on their IP address. So it may not be super, super accurate.
Right.
But it does allow you to kind of specify who you're sending out the list. So why would you break them up, and how are the ways that you particularly break people up into groups?
Yeah, I try to use as many tags as I can, and I'm probably not even touching the flexibility and what you could do with it. For me, I'm thinking about one, I'm capturing or tagging a person from, if I can, where they came from. So if they came from a particular landing page, I want to make sure that I capture that in a tag. Um, if they bought a product and that's how they came to us, I'm going to tag that. I also have tags for people, like we work a lot with people who are powwow organizers. So we tag them manually, go in and tag them to make sure that we can then send them other information that maybe our list doesn't get, like,
Okay.
yeah, helping them promote their event on
Sure.
our calendar. So I'm using them as I recommend people really sit down and kind of think about that before you just start throwing tags and come up with a good naming convention. So, 10 years later that you can still figure out what these tags mean. I have made that mistake, and there are tags I have no idea why I use them. Um, but this is your way of tracking people, and then using that information to segment them and put them in other things. A really powerful thing in Kit, as you get a little bit further, I think is that super cool is, say in your weekly broadcast, you you're going to have a guest on. You're going to have Katie on
Hmm.
next week, right? And you put in one of your broadcasts, hey, are you interested in Ecamm? Click here to make sure you watch my episode about Katie. Well, you can tag everybody that clicks that link
Oh, okay.
and then build a sequence or a response that gives them more information about Kit or about
About
Ecamm, right?
Ecamm. Okay.
Right. So you could then say, put them into that. And, so you can start doing some really cool things with that. And even based on actions, then they get more information, or they get put into a different sequence, or follow up with things like that. Or you can just send your next broadcast out to everybody who clicked on that link and say, hey, thanks for watching last week's episode. I've got some more information about Ecamm. Here's what I think you should need to know.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Now, one of the things that I've just briefly kind of played around with is Kit has this idea of like visual automations where you can kind of
Yes.
like, can you talk to me about that and how you use those personally, and why I would use it, or whoever would use it?
So there's two ways to do automations in Kit. There's the visual automations, and then there's just rules. I have a few visual automations. For me, rules make more sense. They can do the same thing. There's a few nuanced differences, but a visual automation is for people who like flowcharts, and
Okay.
it's like, if you were a coder, this happens, and then there's a branch. If this go up here, if this happens, go up here. So you can kind of visually lay out your flow.
Okay.
And especially if we start talking about the funnels and trying to get people to buy, and moving them through, that's where that works really well. For me, I just do, I have more rules.
Okay.
Yeah, so mine are more of person signed up using this landing page, then I add this tag. If this tag is added, then they're added to the sequence. That makes more sense to me. But visual autom it just gives you multiple ways of accomplishing the same thing.
Great. Okay. And one of the things that, and I don't know if you put this to use or not, but, and again, I'm talking heavy on Kit because I really,
It's okay.
I really love from what I've seen. Again, I'm just getting into it, and will probably become a subscriber, at some point here in the near future, just because you can do some stuff with the basic stuff. But I think what I'm planning on using it for is things like you were saying, if I'm speaking here, or if I have this, I can pass people off to a landing page to have them sign up based on that and give them something back. You can have
Right.
them get them a PDF. You can have them, and whatever you want to do to
Yes.
them to give it back. But the other thing that I really like about it is the integrations that they have. They have integrations with things like Fourth Wall, which is I'm using for my merch shop. And so you can
Right.
essentially tag people who have bought your product and bring them into Kit to start an email sequence on that. Do you use any of those third-party integrations with Kit?
Yeah, I use a ton. I'm using Mighty Networks integration for our community platform, Shopify. What else do we use? ThriveCart. So you're talking about like selling your product. You can
Hmm.
even, if somebody clicks on a t-shirt, you tag them that they're interested, and you can track to see if they've purchased and build a sequence that gives them a coupon if they haven't purchased it.
I
So for
gotcha.
all those who were interested but didn't check out, then you can put them in another sequence based on their actions, and then give
Hmm.
them, an incentive. So that kind of stuff is really powerful.
That's really cool. Now, again, I think this is, I think, probably part of the reason that I've struggled setting up a list, and I do agree 100% with the fact of owning your own things. In fact, for
Yes.
my podcast, I'm creating my own RSS feed in WordPress because I don't
Nice.
want to. I mean, I'm hosting with a hosting company with Captivate, but
Right, right.
I like having control over my feed, and so I like having that ability because, again, if you get shut off the internet, you at least have a way to contact those people who are on your list. But I think one of the things that I've struggled with is I'm trying to come up with content for my podcast, and I want to make sure that that content is separate from my email list. But how do I come up with content? You know what I mean? Say like how do I make that so it's relative, that I'm not just repeating the same kind of content, that there's a value add in the email list? Because if I'm subscribed to my podcast as well as subscribed to my email list, I don't want to be that to be repetitive where I'm saying the same things just in text. So how are you finding it? You're doing a podcast, correct? And how do you find different content to put up there?
Sure. So first of all, let's talk about who sees your emails and who sees your podcast. Um, Even if we have 1,000 email subscribers and have a really good open rate of 50 or 60%, there's still 400 or 500 people that didn't get your email newsletter.
Mm,
So it's okay to duplicate some things because they're not seeing it. Same thing if you post your latest episode on social media. We know that, with 1,000 followers, you may get, on a good day, you may get 10%, right, that
sure.
see it. On our Facebook page, we have a very good following. We're at about 1.7 million. If I can get 1% of my followers to see a single post, it's a great day.
Mm,
Um, so it's okay if you duplicate because people don't see all of your content. And especially as your audience grows, you need to give them multiple touch points for them to
mhm,
take action. So it's okay. One of the things I tell podcasters, I think a really cool thing to build is build a sequence that acts like your weekly broadcast. So I'll tell you how I do it on powells.com. So we have something we call our Throwback Thursday, and it is a sequence, but people think it's a broadcast message because I treat
mm,
it like that. So every Thursday, it sends out a message and it just says, "Hey, by the way, you probably missed an article we wrote about this topic. I think you're really going to like it because it includes this, this, and this. Click here to go listen or go read it." For podcasters, if you got more than 20 episodes, this is an easy thing to build. You can you can highlight your best content
okay.
and put it, and take people through that journey or even organize them by category, whatever. But it's a great way for making sure that everybody that subscribes to your email today knows about that really, really good interview you did with Doc from Ecamm 2 years ago.
Awesome.
Otherwise, they may never see it, right?
Yeah.
So as a podcaster, use that. Maybe it's your, follow Friday or catch up Tuesday, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that way, it's an easy sequence to build, and people just think it's another broadcast that's coming out to them.
Now, would you have that same people going into, like, say they're already in a sequence? Would you still have them doing that also in a separate sequence, or is this
Yeah. So
something that you're kind of interspersing between the two? And can you do that? Can you say, okay, every other Tuesday I want this to come out, but not the other sequence, or how does that work?
Kind of. The way I
Okay,
do it again is you don't get my weekly broadcast, you don't get my Throwback Thursday, or any of the things that go out to everybody until you complete your
gotcha.
initial sequence. So when you finish what to expect at your first powwow, then you're put
Then you get it.
into I tag them differently, and they're put into a segment, and the newsletters are only weekly newsletters only sent out to that segment. Same thing with you're not put into that Throwback Thursday sequence until you finish your first sequence.
Okay, gotcha. That totally makes sense. I do like that idea, and going back to the idea of what to as a podcaster, what you can do. I think one of the other ideas that I had too is when I'm planning out content for the next month or whatever
Mhm.
as I'm planning, I can also set days that I'm going to record and say, hey, if you want to watch me record with Paul, like, come here, click this link,
Right.
and we can get people on the live stream, because I think I like, part of me as a podcaster, I like what I do as a recording, but I love it when people hang out live with me, because it just provides a whole different aspect to the
Yes.
game. And so that's, I think, one of the ways that I would like to use that is to be able to kind of make sure people know what's going on in my community. Like you were saying with the powwows, you send
Right.
out the what's happening, things like that. So I like that. And then I also, one thing that I did notice about Kit is that I can also say, okay, here's my RSS feed, send out an email based on when I release that. So is that something that you take advantage of too? Like, if you release a podcast episode, do you have it send out automatically, or do you do this something more manual?
We do it more manually just because the podcast is just one piece of content we're putting out. So my
Mm,
weekly emails are more of a wrap up of all of the content we've put out. So
okay.
our calendar, our event calendar, our powwow live streams, our podcast, any articles we've written. So it's kind of summary of all of that stuff. It's more than just we're sending out more than just one podcast.
That makes sense. Awesome. What what are some things that are tips and tricks that you may have that I've not even asked about yet? Because that I may not
Yeah.
even know to ask about because I'm really
One
new
of
at
the
this.
one of the most powerful things that Kit has that other people don't is the recommendation network. And this is a super easy way to grow your list. You just turn it on, and when people, here's how it works. You turn it on, and when people go to one of your email forms or your landing page and they subscribe, you're able to then, it pops up another layer on top of the page and it says, "Hey, thanks for subscribing. Here's some other newsletters I recommend." And it
Okay.
lists 4 or 5. Okay. That's cool for you just to give your audience some other
Hmm.
things. But the other people will start recommending you, and you'll start growing because other people are recommending you. And I had a slide for this at Podfest. I think powwows.com sent, I don't remember the name of the newsletter. I don't know him, but it's a history newsletter, which I
Mm.
thought my readers would like. So far or in 2025, I think I sent him 750 email subscribers,
Oh wow.
and he did nothing, right? He's just in the Kit network. And I said, "Hey, you guys might want to like this." And so I've sent him free email subscribers.
Now, as a content creator, am I able to say these are the ones I recommend, or is it just something
Yes.
algorithm that comes up and recommends?
Yes, you can turn on which ones you recommend, and
Okay.
there's a ton of people like Katie's in there, Jeff C,
Hmm.
who's another Ecamm person, Lou Mangello, who's a big Disney guy.
Hmm.
There's probably lots of people you already know that are in
Yeah.
there, so you can easily turn on a bunch of
Okay.
people that you would recommend. And then part two of that is Kit has an integration with it's an app called Spark Loop. And so if you recommend 5 people, you can turn on Spark Loop, and 1 or 2 of those recommendations will pay you.
Oh, okay.
You can make anywhere from 50 cents to $3 per subscriber you send to it. It's
Interesting.
not going to be, it's not, this isn't going to, let you quit your job and be a full-time creator, but it could be 20, $30 extra a month that
Hmm.
maybe pays for Captivate, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think back of what the episode that you did with Katie and Doc, because I remember listening to that twice. I'm gonna be honest. I listened to
Oh,
it
that's
twice
awesome.
because I was like, "There's so much really good content in here," and immediately that's when I went out and started digging into Kit and things like that. So, um, anything else that you would recommend? Any other tips and tricks on that? Because
Yeah,
I know for me at first, even like trying to figure out, okay, I have this blank canvas of not only emails, but like how do I want to start
right.
this whole program? Because obviously you've got this whole like don't want to call it network, but kind of a network where you have people coming in from different spots and
Yes.
different sequences and things. So like me as a creator, a big blank slate creator, where I'm just saying, okay, I'm starting new. Like that was a little bit overwhelming for me. So how would you, if you're recommending to me, to start an email list? How would you say to start? Like, I don't have to have my whole list or my whole plan created, right? But
No,
how would you
no.
say I would go ahead and start?
Start with that sequence that we talked about in the beginning. How you can help people with their podcast, whether it's
Hmm.
stopping them from pod fading or making it easy to publish your first 10, whatever it is. Create that first, and then just get that going, build a landing page for it, and start promoting it. The other thing I like to tell podcasters is in your podcast, what's your call to action? Is your call to action
Hmm.
go to iTunes and subscribe, go to YouTube and rate me? If that's your call to actions, then podcast listeners know to do that stuff. So
Right.
don't instead of doing that, let's make your call to action an email landing page. So for
Mm.
example, on my podcast, one of the things I'll do on powwows.com is like, hey, if you're looking for powwows near you, we have an event calendar with powwows in all 50 states and most Canadian provinces. It's free. We'll send it to you every week. All you have to do is go to powwows.com/powwows near me, sign up, and I'll start sending you upcoming powwows right to your inbox. That is an effective call to action in a
Hmm.
podcast, and it's going to grow your list. And the other stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah, I think I do like that idea. Just being able to start small and giving them the tips,
Right.
and then you said kind of then bring them into your general list of things that you've built, and you can go back and do that later too, because you don't have to
Yes.
have that right away. You can say in your automations, people who have completed this sequence, and you can start that whenever, right? They don't have to
Right.
get it right away. As soon as they're done, as soon as you create the content, they can do that. So that's really cool. I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Start
Um,
small. This is it can be overwhelming. I agree. And Kit does so many things. Any of the email platforms, there's so many things you can do.
mhm,
Start small, start with just one sequence. Don't even worry about creating your weekly broadcast at first. Just concentrate on growing that sequence.
mhm,
And then once you get, 10, 20, 100 people in there, then let's start talking about what else we can send to them
mhm.
and go from there. But if you build your sequence, say you build 5 emails, whether you send it out once a day or once a week, you're going to have, you're going to give yourself a little bit of cushion to figure
Mhm.
the rest of the stuff out.
Yeah, and I do, going back to the call to action at the end of the podcast. I think for me, a lot of times I don't do the subscribe to wherever, but a lot of times it changes. It's if you need help doing a podcast, contact me here. It's a lot of stuff, and I
Right.
know that we don't, as podcasters, we don't want to say 35 different calls to action because people aren't going to remember it. They're not going to do it, right? And the thing I like about using your email list on that is because then I can eventually, once they do sign up, then I can say in an email, do you need help? Like, do you what's and
Yeah.
do you
Right.
do you I know I've heard some people, and it might have even been Pat Flynn. I don't remember who it was saying it, but like, do you at some point say in one of your emails, like, ask a question and then just have people respond to you? Like, or do you get a lot of responses from
Yes.
that?
Oh, yeah. So my first email in the what to expect at your first powwow, um, I kind of introduced them as, hey, this is going to be a daily lesson over the next like 10 days. Here's the stuff I'm going to answer for you. But before we even get started, I want to know from you, what are you most excited about?
Mm,
What is it that's drawing you to a powwow? Is it the dancing, the singing, the crafts, the food? What is it that you're excited about? And yes, I get several responses every single day. It's super exciting to see those. One, it tells me that people are still subscribing and it's
mhm,
getting delivered and it works. But two, that's my way of then you can start a conversation, right? Then you know, what are we doing this for? We're in the relationship business, and that's my way of
mhm,
starting that relationship. And actually, you know, again, if I can build that know, like, trust, they're going to keep reading, they're going to keep engaging. So
mhm.
yeah, I love getting those replies, and that's going to be, every morning. That's the first thing I look at is who wrote back to that.
That's awesome. So then I know that one of the most important things is to engage your listeners and people who actually reach
Right.
out to you. So responding to them, do you respond to each and every one, or how do you respond to them? Do you call them out in an email? Do you call them out in your podcast? How do you respond to those listeners?
Well, if they respond to that email, I'm writing personal responses back
Sure.
to every one of them. Um, and then comments on Facebook and stuff, that's a little more difficult just because
Mhm.
of the volume. But
Sure.
in email, that again, that's why I want to have my community on email because it's a platform I can manage and I can answer all of those people. So yeah, I drive them back to email for that place where I can actually engage with them.
And I think that that's a better conversation, anyways, right? I mean, on Facebook, it's like kind of a one to many platform. You're kind of in a room, if you will, where other people can chime in and say things and
Yeah,
comment. Whereas on an email, it's a one to one conversation with you, Paul.
right.
Like it's a people feel more connected with you and then the product. And I think not even product to sell, but like whatever you're doing. And I think that in the long run, that builds trust a whole lot more than just you answering on Facebook as a kind of anonymous type person, where
Right.
they know that if they sent you an email, you're responding to it. And I think that surprises a lot of people too when they get an email back from the person creating the email list, because they
Yes.
know that they're not just in an automated sequence, right? They know that they know that
Yeah.
you're there and willing to connect with them. So
I love getting those emails. People write me and will say like, "Oh, I didn't think anybody would actually respond to this. I didn't know this. We thought this was just an automated. We didn't know anybody would
uh,
respond." So those are fun. Here's one thing I just thought about. I'm going a different branch just for a second,
sure,
but
absolutely.
talking about these call to actions in your podcast. So we're going to make one about here are my 10 tips for helping you start your podcast today. You're gonna build that landing page. You're gonna build a sequence. You're gonna come up with a call to action that you're gonna mention in your podcast, but you're not gonna say it in your podcast. You're gonna record it as an individual audio clip, and you're gonna use Captivate to automatically insert it as a
Ooh,
pre-roll, post-roll, or mid-roll.
love that.
And so then in December or whenever, this summer, if you decide to do a challenge or you have a new sequence, you can go back into Captivate and change that call to action and keep them fresh.
Right. And I like that too, because your call to action may change because you're giving out
Yeah,
something different, but you're still ultimately subscribing them to your email list and getting them
exactly.
on the list. That's genius. I love that.
Yes.
And yeah, and I love the fact, yeah, with Captivate that you can go ahead and add those pre-rolls, post-rolls, mid-rolls,
Right.
whenever. Like that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I use Captivate and I've subscribed to it to begin with, because it's like I love that ability to be able to do that and say like, hey, we're going to be at this place, come meet us, whatever. So yeah, that's genius to use that for your call to action too.
Yeah. Yeah. It works so well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do appreciate you being on the show today. I could probably pick your brain forever on this. So, but if you have anything that you want to, any places my listeners can connect with you, or anything you want to promote for yourself right now, go for it.
So here's, this is my email call to actions, right? So yes, so if you are interested in powwows, Native American powwows are open to everybody, and I highly encourage people to go and visit them. It is a complete cultural immersion. It is something if you've never been, it is really, really cool. And that one I talked about, what to expect at your first powwow, it is powwows.com/powwow101. Now, if you're interested in learning more about growing your email list, if you want to see the tools, this is another sequence I talked about earlier. If you want to see the tools I use to grow my list, then it's paulgowder.com/email tools.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate you being on the show today. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that? Can they email you? Probably just join your list,
Yeah.
right? And respond.
Join my list or email me, paul@powwows.com. I'd be glad to talk with you.
Awesome. Thanks again, Paul, for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.